I think it's really tough on all the people out here that are missing Father's Day, and it's making them a little bit edgy, and we're a little bit edgy. My wife is real edgy, and it's getting tougher, I think, for everybody.
While many of us were getting together with friends and family to celebrate Father's Day, one family and the amazing community rallying around them was out looking for Summer Wells. That was her father talking about the efforts in that video clip. We're talking about a 5-year-old. She has been missing 10 days as of when this video is being posted. We're worried that we're losing hope, but we're going to go through all the details of the investigation today. Quite honestly, one of the most impressive efforts that I've seen. We've got several different states all pitching in on this search. It's time to turn on the searchlight for Summer Wells. Welcome back to Brainscratch Searchlight. I'm John Lorden. Thank you for joining me for this episode. It is all hands on deck looking for Summer Wells. There was an Amber Alert issued. Here is the notice. Let's go through the details. Obviously, there's no NamUs entry yet. Summer Moon Utah Wells, age 5, white female with blonde hair, blue eyes, stands at about 3 feet tall, weighs 40 pounds, missing from Rogersville, Tennessee since June 15th, 2021. That's last Tuesday, if you're watching this video as soon as it comes out. An Amber Alert has been issued on behalf of the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office for Summer Moon Utah Wells. Summer is a 5-year-old white female, 3 feet tall, 40 pounds, blonde hair, blue eyes, last seen wearing gray pants, a pink shirt, and was possibly barefoot. Of course, they have contact information. We've got some on the screen now. It'll be there throughout the whole episode anytime we're in this view, but we've also got it in the description box down below if you have any information that can help with this case. Let's learn about it, starting with where this is taking place over at Wikipedia. Rogersville, Tennessee is a town in and the county seat of Hawkins County, Tennessee, in the United States. It was settled in 1775 by the grandparents of Davy Crockett. It's named for its founder, Joseph Rogers. In 2019, its estimated population was 4,377. From the images we see here, I mean, this looks like Main Street anywhere, USA, but you can also get a sense it's over almost at the eastern tip of Tennessee. You can see it here on the map highlighted in orange. Let's get into the articles and see what we can learn about this. Over at WATE.com, Summer Wells' father describes evening of 5-year-old's disappearance. Don Wells, the father of 5-year-old Summer Wells, spoke with News Channel 11 about the disappearance of his daughter. And here's a quote. She was planting flowers with her mother and her grandmother, and she wanted to go into the house. So my wife watched her go into the door, and she went into the house. The boys were on the internet, of course, and she wanted to go downstairs and play with her toys. So when her mother came in and she says, Summer, and she went down into the basement, she didn't answer. So she went down there, and she was gone. She went out the basement door, which was unlocked, and we haven't seen her since. Now, the way that is phrased, I'm not sure if he's trying to say that Summer's mother went out the basement door and then noticed that the basement door was unlocked, or if he's assuming that Summer went out the basement door, which was unlocked. And that's kind of what it sounds like, because he ends the sentence with, and we haven't seen her since. Wells said he believes there are people who come through the area seeking drugs. I've done a little bit of looking into crime statistics for this area. There does seem to be some crime that happens in this area. For violent crimes, not a crazy amount. And for disappearances of this nature, like a young person of this age, I'm not seeing a whole lot. Yes, there are occurrences, but almost very, very sporadic, especially if we're talking about the potential of this being a kidnapping. Back to his quote, we know she wouldn't leave the property. She doesn't do that, he said. TBI, that's the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, issued an Amber Alert for Summer after initially issuing an endangered child alert when she was reported missing. The agency chose to upgrade the alert because of new information and growing concern. And outside of that, they also kept the alert extended. I'm not sure if it's still currently active, but typically those would only be active for a period of, I think it's about 3 days. And they've extended it beyond that, just trying to raise awareness in the area and trying to get as much information as they can about this. I'm curious because them issuing an Amber Alert, they don't have any vehicle description that I've seen. We don't have any suspect description or anything of that nature. So I think in some states, you might not even be able to issue an Amber Alert. But thankfully, they were here. They've been doing everything they can to raise awareness in this area. Obviously, we want to help them with that. Continuing with another article at WATE. On Thursday afternoon, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation held a briefing. Now, this would be last Thursday, so just a few days after her disappearance. We had hoped to have good news to share with you by now, but unfortunately, we do not, said TBI's Public Information Officer Leslie Earhart. Everyone continues to ask if she wandered off. Why did somebody not see her? Said Churchill Rescue Squad Captain Tim Coop. This part of the community, the residents are very spread out. Some being from one hilltop to the other hilltop or at the start of the road, and you might go a mile before you ever get to another residence, making that very difficult for residents just to be at home while outside working or something and notice her leaving that area. Now, what's interesting here is this information obviously is important for us to get a sense of the area, and we're going to look at some maps and get a good sense of that in a bit. But he's pointing out that this isn't a very populated area. We know this is kind of a smallish town, less than 5,000 residents. I believe it's about 3.5 square miles or something like that. So, I mean, there is homes. It's not quite like farmland where, you could go acres and acres and acres before you bump into anyone. You might be able to go a handful of acres, but not huge, massive gaps. There are homes around this area, but they are pretty spread out. So, in terms of someone noticing something, yeah, that makes it tough. But it also raises the question of if this is a kidnapping situation, it's probably not going to be someone too local. We're going to find information as we go through this. Law enforcement is saying they're having no problem with any of the neighbors. As a matter of fact, they aren't even having to get search warrants because people are being so cooperative. So it just raises a question of, what type of situation are we looking at here? Is this little girl literally wandered off the property, wandered out into the woods? Something might have happened from there. That's not necessarily what her family's saying. So I'm just kind of trying to draw out the information that might help us come to some understanding of at least the different possibilities that are going on with this case. And for this one, it makes me wonder about the potential for a kidnapping. I personally don't feel like it's extremely high. I think there's probably a strong chance that we had her wander off, and now we have to figure out, is this just her wandering off and then something happens to her if she gets lost out in the woods, or is this her wandering off, someone noticing that and then taking advantage of the situation, and perhaps that could be a kidnapping situation. We'll kind of evaluate that as we continue going through this, but Coop explained why they're not asking for volunteers. Due to the extreme terrain, the nature of this, trying to locate her, trained professionals are what's needed at this time to make sure that these residents don't become endangered. Essentially, you've got a community that just pops up and wants to help in any which way they can. And law enforcement is effectively saying, no, we can't take community members assisting on this search effort. They don't want to all of a sudden have to go for, hey, we had 3 searchers that went out in that direction. They never came back. And then we've got more missing people and the search effort gets spread out. And now they're divvying up their resources looking for multiple people. Apparently the terrain in this area, he's saying it, very, very tough. We're going to hear some more examples about this as we're going through the updates. The circumstances surrounding Summer's disappearance remain unclear, said Earhart. If we do develop information that she was taken and we develop a suspect and a vehicle description, we will share that immediately. At this time, that's just not the case. Pretty telling statement there. And I'm trying to not write too much into this, but I can tell you a lot of the articles are focusing on this statement that she's saying about the circumstances surrounding Summer's disappearance remain unclear. And I don't want that to lead too many people to go down the road of, well, is she believing the story that we're hearing from the family about the last time they saw Summer? I'm pretty sure that's being evaluated by the people working this case. They're being very clear that there's two main investigations that are effectively going on at the same time here. There is the effort to try to find her, and then there's another investigation that is trying to find the truth or validate the information that they are getting and process the investigation from that angle as well. Earhart added that they have received nearly 50 leads so far, but none have panned out. The longer this goes, the more concerned we get, she said. Investigators asked people living in the area to check outbuildings and storage sheds for any sign of the missing child. We've looked into a few cases here where it is that situation, unfortunately. A child wanders off, and then sometimes there is a tragic outcome to that. Winds up in a pond or under ice. We've seen those types of conditions before. In that, this is a very important step, especially when you're talking about an area like this. You got multiple kind of semi-industrial buildings in this area. I don't mean industrial like drilling for oil or anything of that nature. I mean, you might have farmland, you might have additional sheds and buildings that are part of agriculture development and things like that. A lot of potential for things to kind of capture a kid's attention or seem like something they should gravitate towards. So they've been putting the word out very, very strongly in multiple different press instances that I'm seeing. Please help the investigation. If you live in the area, check those outbuildings, check those storage sheds, do a walk of your property. If there's any, I mean, apparently the terrain's tough out here. You might have ravines that need to be checked out, water sources, things of that nature. Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson said more than 100 first responders were combing the areas near Summer's home. He said the area is very dense, a hard area to search, with very little radio communication possible. Apparently radio communication really tough in this area. We're going to get a little more into the details on that. The family's cooperating in the investigation. Right off the bat, we're having it stated plainly here by the sheriff, but declined to answer questions about any issues within the home. I believe that's the sheriff declined to answer any questions about issues in the home. And now that we're 2 weeks into this, some reporters have done some digging. Some information's coming out about some potential issues in the home. We'll definitely be covering those as well. He added it was too early to tell if there was any foul play involved in the child's disappearance. So obviously it's on the sheriff's mind, at least the possibility. Continuing, and just a shout out to WATE, ABC 6, Channel 11 for their coverage on this. They've been very, very strong on this case. Dozens of first responders from more than 40 agencies are combing the hills and mountains around Ben Hill Road in Northeast Tennessee. So there we get a description of the road, and I did find a map over at WJHL.com that shows Ben Hill Road. It's got a particular area marked. I've also seen videos that are actually showing a satellite view of the home as well. So it's hard to tell from this view, but this is actually raised up on a hill. And on this property, there is a structure, there's the home, there is also a mobile home that's parked. You can see just a little bit of the white edge of it right here. And that is where Summer's grandmother on her mother's side lives, in the trailer. That is close to where they were planting the flowers. We'll see some pictures here in a moment. But if we kind of zoom out on this and take a look, you can see we've got definitely tough terrain all around this, but for other structures, there are homes that appear fairly frequently. I think the thing I'm most concerned about, just kind of taking a look at the map, is this highway that we have running by here. If she had made it down to that highway, which it looks like, and I don't know how steep this is because I'm seeing a pretty hard shadow here. I don't know if it's walkable from the top of the hill where their home is, if there's some way through the woods to get down to the highway. I'd imagine there's some way to, but I don't know if a 5-year-old's really going to be doing that type of terrain, particularly if she's barefoot. The driveway for the home is actually somewhere off the front over here. It's kind of hard to see because it's shaded by trees. You can see a little bit of the hook of it right here, and they've got a little bit of the map showing kind of where the driveway goes. And then there's the driveway just kind of hoops around the whole property, goes between the house and the trailer. And the back door that they were talking about, I believe, is facing east if we're looking at this photo. The back door that they think she came out of would be on the right side of this building. But just taking a look at it, if she goes walking off in any direction, if she goes east, she's going to hit a bunch of buildings here within just a matter of maybe 400 feet. If she goes north, there's a cemetery here. I don't know how populated that would be, if there's workers there regularly. If she drifts north and just a little to the west, she gets to Simpson Loop. There's a bunch of homes that are there. It's one of those things where it looks to me like if this is a little girl that went wandering off in one direction and then got scared to the point of looking to ask for someone to help her, there's a pretty good chance, at least due to the location and kind of how there's buildings spread around the home, that she could have bumped into something, and she didn't. So it's got me worried about the terrain. It's got me worried about the potential for some type of accident there. But then also keep in mind that other thing I was mentioning earlier. How likely is a kidnapping situation? Let's say she even did get down to a road, and then someone saw her there. I don't know. I think really that's the primary concern in terms of a kidnapping situation that I have. We'll talk about some other stats around that as we wrap up the video here. But continuing, another article at WATE.com. Wells said for the first time publicly that the outpouring of love and support is overwhelming. We just really appreciate everyone trying to help. Law enforcement, all these volunteers that they have here. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. He said he's leaning on his faith throughout this difficult time. I just hope that God and his mercies will bring summer home to us. New resources have been added to the search efforts, and I got to tell you, it's basically on a daily basis. This search, they're just pulling in more and more resources. We've got other states that are kicking in. We've got, in this case, they're talking about, they've deployed the state track and radio system specifically to help with that radio coverage issue. And that's just the start. I mean, they've got divers coming. They've got helicopters that are going to be going. They're searching basically from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night every single day. From what I can see over the past few days, I think the kind of mass effort is ramping down a little bit because they've just covered so much terrain. And I think it's looking less and less likely that that approach is going to work. They're kind of drilling it down to more focused efforts from what I'm hearing over the past few days. But initially, this is just a massive search effort with all these people coming in from every which place to help with it. Leslie Earhart with the TBI is quoted here. As of this afternoon, we have received approximately 85 tips. So we can see also that tips number just keeps going up on a daily basis pretty significantly. Agents and officers continue to follow up on each lead that comes in. The community has also created a prayer garden at a church near the search efforts. Captain Tim Coop said there are over 41 agencies from across the state assisting in the case. The TBI adds that they are only looking for credible tips that can help find Summer. I've watched some video of Leslie Earhart talking about this aspect, and basically they're saying, like, look, don't send us a screen grab from Facebook. They're just having that level of information that's coming in that is kind of tying up their resources in a way that might not be exactly helpful or what they're looking for. They kind of state it plainly here. Any calls that are just speculation only impede the search and rescue process. And we certainly don't want to help encourage that with anyone out there. So if you're kind of on the fence, if you're not sure, well, should I call this in or not? The thing is, if it's information that is publicly available, I think you can assume someone has probably gotten it to them at this point. If it's not information that's publicly available, it's something that you know on a personal basis and you know other people aren't aware of it, that's when it's time to pick up the phone and make sure that they have that information. Over at timesnews.net, as of the conclusion of Friday's search, so we get to the end of the week, still no sign of Summer. And we see here a picture of the dive team starting to go out as well. You've heard a lot about the search because that's something we can elaborate on, Earhart said. What you haven't heard a lot about is what's happening outside the search. Rest assured that agents and Hawkins County detectives are investigating this fully. All avenues are being explored. So we've heard a little bit about radio problems, but thankfully they had that system delivered. They're noting it here. They're saying prior to the arrival of the TACN system Friday, poor radio and cell phone service in that community has been a source of aggravation for rescuers. Rural mountainous areas like Beech Creek and Clinch Mountain have always had poor radio coverage, but they've got another issue out there too. There are radio dead spots throughout Hawkins County, but Mayor Jim Lee noted that Beech Creek is one of the worst areas for radio coverage due to the rugged terrain. Lee said a purchase order was sent to Metro Communications in Knoxville last week, and new repeater equipment installation should begin within the next few weeks. So I don't know that that's really going to be helpful for this particular effort. Lee was at the Beech Creek Command Post Thursday, where an AT&T antenna is located, and service was good for that carrier. That's another thing. Cell phone service, also a problem in this area. So the mayor continues, the problem is that most of the public safety personnel has Verizon phones, and they don't work off this tower, he said. My EMA employees have both AT&T and Verizon phones in order to have more coverage in our county. The AT&T tower is only 4 miles from the search area. And even that, 4 miles, you're getting kind of on the edge of that tower's coverage. So not just radio problems, also cell phone problems. And there's another interesting aspect there. With a lot of investigations nowadays, geofencing is becoming a good tool for detectives to use to try to figure out, did anyone in particular come into this area? When you're talking about an area where you don't have great cell phone coverage, that tool not as reliable. Also, if they're looking to track what's going on around the family members, and I just want to put it out there, I know people looking at this case are having considerations about that. Honestly, I think that's why the TBI is even phrasing things the way they are, just about the fact that they're still they're open to anything. They're doing this investigation on all fronts. But if we did run down the mindset that someone in the family or someone close to the family might be involved in this, if the cell phone coverage isn't great out there, we're talking about a tower, being 4 miles away. I don't know that they're going to be able to do much triangulation in terms of ping to determine if a certain cell phone's in a certain spot out there. It's just raising a lot of challenges for this investigation in ways where we see other investigations can make some strides. Throughout the week, the Hawkins County Rescue Squad has put a call out to the community to contribute supplies to rescuers. This is one of the bright spots in this story. Due to the overwhelming quantity of donations, the organization is asking everyone to pause on the donation of supplies. And I'm kind of seeing that a few different times. They'll go like, uh-oh, we're starting to run short. We need fluids for these guys. We need deodorant for these guys. The community all of a sudden swings in, and then another press release comes out and goes, whoa, okay, we're good. Because they're having to figure out the logistics of all that stuff as well. So, but it's great to just see this community rallying the support around this little girl like that. And we're going to see a few very specific big examples of that as we continue here. Over at Johnson City Press, this is a picture of the whole family. I don't think I've laid it out yet, but there are 3 sons, Summer, and then the 2 parents. Donald Wesley Wells spoke to the Times News about the circumstances surrounding his daughter's disappearance and what has been happening to him, his wife Candace, and their 3 sons since Summer went missing. He said his wife called him at work in Jonesboro. So this is on the day, and this is one of the things I wanted to point out, because I know there's a lot of people that see content like this and start thinking, well, one of the people that I'm presenting in the video to you guys, this has to be the person that we're looking for. Not necessarily. It's not how these cases go. But I know that there's some people looking in the direction of Donald. He's kind of managing the conversation publicly. Quite honestly, I haven't seen any quotes from Candace about this case at all. And admittedly, That's what I see happen in missing persons cases. Typically, there will be one family member that steps up and is the main liaison with the media, because sometimes the other people, they can't do it. They're just in too much pain. The grief is too heavy. They just don't have that ability to do that. So I don't know what's going on with this particular situation. What we do know is what Donald's telling us is when Summer went missing, he wasn't at home. He was at work. He said his wife called him at work in Jonesboro, and he told her to hang up and call 911, and he immediately headed for home. So Jonesboro, according to this quick search, looks like it's about 22 miles away, approximately a 39-minute drive from there back to the home. I just noticed this statement, and the logic of it is twisting my brain a little bit. He arrived before law enforcement. I'm kind of thinking a 911 call about a missing 5-year-old is probably going to get a pretty rapid response. I know this area looks pretty spread out. I'm not sure how many patrols they have in this particular area, what else might have been going on that day that could have delayed their response. The timing on that's just a little odd to me. I just kind of wanted to point that out. But many of his neighbors were already searching the area around his home on Ben Hill Road. Here's a quote from him. "I was freaking out, and when I got home, I drove up to the property, and all my neighbors were combing the woods for her. I realized then and there that she was not there. I knew right then and there that she was gone. She would never leave there on her own. Somebody had taken her." Mr. Wells said it is his belief that Summer was abducted and taken out of the area. And I really wish we would get some better description about where that belief is coming from. I'm just looking at the area. It's not super populated. I don't know what this highway is like in terms of how much traffic it gets. The possibility that a 5-year-old girl could get out there and the first person that would notice her would be someone that would think about doing something awful like abducting her versus a 5-year-old getting out to the road and a neighbor driving by or someone caring enough to say, whoa, why is that little girl out there alone? And then, maybe try to help her or at least call authorities or something like that. So the only thing I can say is he keeps commenting about the fact he thinks that there's drug users out there and that occasionally, apparently these people will come right up onto your property. But I'm not sure how much I'm leaning into the possibility that there's an abduction. I certainly don't think it takes place around the house. I mean, we've got reportedly mom and grandma sitting outside. That driveway is just a big hoop. So I don't think it's someone that actually drove up on their driveway. I mean, I'm sure that they would hear someone coming up their road. It seems to me like if there is a possibility of an abduction, the only scenario I'm really seeing is she wanders off and then someone takes advantage of that situation. Donald continues, "She would never leave. For one thing, we've got bears and wild dogs, and we've got druggies who come around to other people's houses all hours of the night." That's another thing, and he's pointing it out here, but this was like 5:30 in the evening, which makes me think someone was laying in wait. I heard somebody say that people track kids down on Facebook and find them. All I know is she's definitely not around there. Somebody has abducted her and took her out of the area. He willingly took a lie detector test to assist in the investigation. He said he and his wife have been looking at photos of potential suspects. That's just another thing that's just a little weird to me, guys. Why are you looking at photos of suspects? Like, we've got nothing to indicate that they've seen anyone as part of this that could be helpful for them to be reviewing photos, unless they're looking at pictures and trying to pick out, I remember some guy that acted weird when we were at the store the week before, or something of that nature. The Wells family are members of the Kingsport Seventh-day Adventist Church in Kingsport. Wells said they love their church family, and Summer especially has many friends at church. They just love her to death, he said. Wells is originally from Utah, and he met his wife in Arkansas, where their oldest son was born. Candace Wells is from Wisconsin. The Wells family moved to their Ben Hill Road residence 13 years ago to take care of his mother. She has since passed away. They inherited her house and have lived there ever since. Summer and the two youngest boys were actually born there. And then at some point, Candace's mother comes and starts living in the trailer on the property as well. WJHL posts some photos of the property, and these are the best view that we can get of the property. Google Maps, there's no roads that are nearby. You can't drop to the street level and try to zoom in to get any sense of it. I tried from the highway side. That's the only side that is tracked. But from there, all you can see is trees. I mean, it's super, super dense. So this is the back of the home, like I was describing. You've got the home here and then the trailer where grandma's living over here. And this is reportedly the door. This blue door right here is the one that she came out of. Or they assume she came out of because it was unlocked. Summer's parents spoke with News Channel 11 and allowed the release of new photos of the property that show where her family reports to have seen her last. The last time that Summer's parents saw their daughter, actually mother and grandmother, was in the garden. And here we have a shot of the garden. The only indicator I can get for where it is you can see kind of the edge of the camper and one of the poles that I think is holding up this shelter here. So I think that garden is on the far side, like right over here. So with mom and grandma sitting there continuing their gardening, could Summer come out this door and not be seen by them? I think so. There's just enough of an angle there, especially with what I'm seeing for the location of these plants, because it's really over off on the edge. There's a good chance they're kind of almost on the back side of the trailer, working around that stuff. Coming out the door, certainly possible. But if she does come out that door, at that point, she's really heading east. And it's not a direct path exactly to the highway from there. I mean, she could go off into the woods, get lost up in the woods and then wind up out at the highway at some point. June 20th, over at Crime Online, we see infrared cameras deployed. From Saturday night into early Sunday morning, searchers were on the ground combing through fields with flashlights. A helicopter was also being used overnight. The Tennessee Highway Patrol has one of its helicopters equipped with an infrared camera that can detect body heat. And Saturday night search was prompted by a tip. There's been a couple of these that I've seen in this case where a tip will come in and all of a sudden there's kind of a quick rush for a new search effort. I've seen a few news stories where they've referred to that. Unfortunately, it seems like nothing's really being found, at least that they're talking about publicly, based off those tips. The girl's father, Don Wells, said Friday that investigators searched his home, which he said he understands because police have to rule out potential suspects. Well, I think they have to do that, Don Wells told WVLT-TV. Then he says they can't rule out anybody. It's their job to rule out everybody. I'm not sure about the two kind of conflicting statements there. They're just doing their job, what they've got to do, and we welcome them to do their job for sure. Me personally, I'm pretty certain someone grabbed her, threw her in a car, and left the area. Summer, if you can hear me, we all love you so much. He's very dedicated to that thought. Amber Alert, Day 6. Officials receive 137 tips. The TBI reported there's still no sign of missing 5-year-old Summer Wells. The TBI also said on its Twitter account Sunday that nearly 70 agencies from across Tennessee and other states had assisted and worked tirelessly to find Summer. It's an amazing effort. I'm so thankful to everyone out there that's looking for her. TBI officials continue to ask anyone and everyone to share Summer's photo and information as the search carries on. And now we're catching up to that video segment that we started today's episode with. Summer Wells' father talks of family as crews search on Father's Day. Wells reported that the Department of Children's Services has been out on scene to help the family work through the stress and uncertainty, but Summer's brothers are finding it especially hard. They're kind of fighting more than usual, said Wells. They got into it first thing this morning, and the team come running up the hill. They heard screams, and so I've been trying to keep it down. Summer's mother, Candace Wells, hasn't been doing well either, according to Dawn. She'd be frantic. I mean, she's having a hard time, said Dawn. She'll be okay for a little bit, and then she's up and down. Don Wells also spoke to the shape he's worried his daughter may be in. All those feelings of her being traumatized and stuff like that, those thoughts were coming back and where she could possibly be, you know. And I know she's hurting, and I know she's scared, and I know she misses us. Day 6 of searching closes with no sign of Summer. Officials say they're more concerned than ever to find her. Crews from 72 agencies have been searching the woods in difficult terrain surrounding the home. More than 2,400 acres have been covered so far. While we've not ruled out an abduction, we simply do not have any evidence at this point to confirm that's what occurred, said Leslie Earhart, spokesperson for the TBI. For that reason, the ground search for Summer continues. We will not quit until we find Summer Wells, said Captain Tim Coop. And that's a picture of him over on the right here. Earhart said drivers who were in the area around the time Wells was reported missing have been identified and interviewed. So it looks like they're kind of thinking along those lines as well. Like, what if she got out to a road? They're trying to track down every instance of someone coming through there. I don't know if they have cameras or I'm not sure exactly how they're getting that list together, but you can tell it's something that they are doing. Investigators have also reviewed residential surveillance video and photos from the area. As of Monday, the TBI had received 150 tips. So we've just got that number escalating day over day. She once again said dealing with rumors and speculation is always a battle. Now, if the challenges they've been facing with this case aren't enough, severe weather affects search. Harsh terrain and poor cell phone signal has hampered the search, and now the weather is making things worse. Those nearby the search efforts have worries that the weather could impact evidence of where the girl might be. The weather's going to be a big impact on the search, just washing away any kinds of tracks or stuff like that, said a community member. On the 7th day of searching, some are losing confidence that she will come home safely. Definitely hard to keep faith, especially when they've been gone so long and they're so young, said one man. Over at WSMV.com, search for 5-year-old Summer Wells enters week 2. Agencies from Tennessee and surrounding states, including National Parks Rangers and Tennessee State Troopers, are now assisting in the search for Wells. Investigators said they've searched about 2,400 acres with the help of 70 agencies out of 6 states, including Ohio, Virginia, Georgia, Alabama, and North Carolina. And getting into the second week of the investigation, seems like that was long enough for news agencies to start reaching for court records. We start having some interesting things come out, including something about Dawn in particular. Over at WFLA.com, mother of missing 5-year-old Summer Wells filed protective order against husband last year. The mother of Summer Wells stated in court documents that she was afraid for my children and myself. An arrest warrant obtained Tuesday morning by WKRN states a Hawkins County deputy had responded October 14, 2020, to the home where Donald Wells lived with his wife and 4 children, including Summer, for a report of a domestic assault. As the deputy arrived, he saw a man behind the wheel of a white GMC Sonoma that was driving away. Wells's wife explained her husband came home drunk and accused her of having an affair. At one point, Wells pushed his wife down, injuring her knee, then punched himself in the face multiple times and left the residence, according to the warrant. The GMC Sonoma pulled back into the driveway, and the deputy could hear Wells's family members, quote, fear for his return. One person reportedly stated that there was a firearm in the GMC. Deputy stopped Wells in the driveway and said he smelled strongly of alcohol and was stumbling. Wells, a felon out of Utah, told the deputy there was a black pistol in his glove box and that he had some to drink tonight, according to the warrant. Wells was arrested and booked into the Hawkins County Jail on multiple charges, including domestic assault, possession of a handgun while under the influence, and unlawful possession of a weapon. Continuing at WKRN, In an emergency protective order filed October 15th, 2020, Summer's mother wrote of Wells, "He drinks and throws things. I'm afraid of being hurt. He is abusive physically and mentally toward me. I'm afraid for my children and myself." She went on to write that her mother stayed in a camper on the property and feared Wells would hurt her as well. In the filing, Summer's mother asked for temporary custody of all 4 of the couple's children, as well as for Wells to move out immediately. Court documents show Summer's mother chose to dismiss the petition 4 days later, on October 19th. Another warrant obtained by News 2 states that the FBI and the Tennessee Highway Patrol had also responded to the home on August 13th, back in 2001, where the residence was searched and Wells was found hiding in a storage room. That time, Wells was arrested for a parole violation out of Utah and charged with being a fugitive from justice. What does Donald say about all this? We'll get to that, but first, a couple of highlights going on with the community around this. Over at Johnson City Press, a beautiful floral arrangement here with a picture of Summer. This is part of the prayer area that has been started, the prayer garden at the local church in Rogersville. But a particular citizen stepped up in a really big way, and I just want to call this man out. On Monday, the Times News received a letter in the mail from David P. Garahan of Kingsport that contained a check for $25,000. "I remain convinced that somebody knows something regarding the disappearance of 5-year-old Summer Wells," he stated in the letter. "Accordingly, I have enclosed a personal check in the amount of $25,000 to be given to the person who provides a tip/information which leads to the discovery/recovery of Summer Wells." The pay to the order of line on the check was left blank to allow the future recipient's name to be entered. That is amazing. And I just want to thank David Garahan for really stepping up in that way. It blows my mind. He is also an author. So if you're looking to help that guy out, that's looking to help this case out like that, do a quick search on David Garahan. Maybe pick up a book if it looks like it catches your interest there. And I know, trust me, this man's not asking for any of that. I'm not finding any indication of it. I went looking to try to figure out who that guy is. Someone else stepping up over at WKRN.com, another $2,000 is being offered by Trevor Lee for information leading to Wells being returned home. He has a domestic and child abuse prevention nonprofit with a mission to stand up for children. I know searchers are getting pretty desperate. I know law enforcement officials are saying the same thing, he said. I was hoping, just a last-ditch effort, to find some kind of answer, hopefully, before it's too late for Summer. Trevor also stepping up in a big way. The Gabby Foundation is his organization. I'll have a link to that in the description box down below. Something else about Trevor. This is a man that's only 19 years old, already looking to make a change in this world like that. Trevor, my hat is certainly off to you. What else is going on with the investigation? We get an update here at WVLT.TV from June 23rd. The search for missing 5-year-old Summer Wells entered its 8th day on Wednesday. Officials with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation announced authorities conducted a roadblock canvass Tuesday evening in the Beech Creek area. So remember that comment before where I was like, I don't know how they're getting to all the drivers. Maybe it's not exactly an iron-proof method. So now they're actually setting up a roadblock and talking to everyone as they're coming through. Investigators spoke with drivers who travel through the area often to see if they noticed anything out of the ordinary on the day Summer went missing. I'm telling you, this team is firing on all cylinders, trying to shake out the information. Over at timesnews.net, we're going to hear the latest. Rescuers have utilized 82 agencies. They've covered 4.6 square miles around the home. Still no sign of Summer. We're also going to hear Don's response here. Summer's father, Donald Wells, was arrested in October of last year on domestic charges. Wells also acknowledged Tuesday that his 34-year-old son, Donald Wesley Wells, is a convicted sex offender, having pleaded guilty in Arkansas in 2007 to sexual indecency with a child. That oldest son was in Utah at the time of Summer's disappearance, Wells said. Wells also said his son's Arkansas offense would have been considered statutory rape in Tennessee because his son was 19 at the time, and the victim was his girlfriend, who was 18 months younger. This past April, Wells pleaded guilty in Hawkins County Sessions Court to possession of a handgun while under the influence. That was one of the charges from the domestic arrest. The other two charges were dismissed. Of course, we know that Candace basically retracted the complaint for the protective order, so that would certainly get that charge to drop. I'm not sure why the having a handgun while intoxicated charge got dropped, but it did also. He was sentenced to 11 months and 29 days on probation, 96 hours of community service, and his gun was forfeited to the state. Donald Wells told the Times News that he called his wife from his sister's home. So he's explaining what happened in that domestic dispute now. He called his wife from his sister's home during a party, and he believes his wife heard a female, his sister, laughing in the background, and that his wife assumed the worst. Wells said his wife then attempted to make him jealous, and he immediately drove back to Hawkins County from Utah, which resulted in the October 14th confrontation. Wells said that after he and his wife were able to calm down and speak together, they realized there had been some misunderstandings on both sides and that they reconciled. We were able to figure it all out. That order of protection, it was just a fight between me and her friends and her mother. So that is his official explanation on it. When asked if he'd be willing to discuss his criminal past in Utah, Wells declined. I don't really want to talk about all that stuff, he said. Utah is a whole different ballgame than Tennessee. That's the Mormon state. I call it the moron state. That's just how I feel. Certainly not winning any points with the public at this point with these conversations. I've had several charges over the years. I used to have, I don't know if I should elaborate on any of that. It's nothing really good. I wasn't really a Christian when I was younger. I found God in prison. I started studying the Bible intently because I wanted to change. That's when I got to know God and tried hard to be a Christian. Of course, I've backslid multiple times, but I'll never let it happen again. I don't know, guys. I'm just very concerned about some of the angles on this investigation. And to be honest with you, I'm concerned about the fact that such an intensive search has been done over that type of area and no trace of hers found at all. Like, we haven't found a shoe, a toy, just something left behind that indicates that she was there. I'm really worried that, quite honestly, the investigation is doing what it needs to be doing at this point, but I don't know if they're running on solid information. That's what I'm concerned about. The only thing that I've seen in terms of Candace actually doing something publicly in terms of sending a message out about this case is found here over at insider.com. On TikTok, an account with the name Candace Wells posted a video on June 16th that showed images of Summer and a missing person notice. WVLT reported that Candace Wells is Summer's mother's name. It also has identified her as Candace Bly, which appears to be her maiden name. The account previously posted videos that appear to show Summer and other children, so it seems like it might be her account. The on-screen text on the video said, "My baby girl, mommy and daddy misses you so much. We are searching everywhere for, and I won't stop until I find you." So here's the video. Some of the pictures we've seen have been released to the media in terms of the search efforts, like this one. Several other pictures haven't, like this one, or that one. So yeah, and it's certainly Summer. At Candace Wells, if you want to check it on TikTok for yourself. The TikTok account's owner did not immediately respond to an inquiry. So, of course, things are starting to look strange. I've seen a video interview from Donald where I believe he states that he was given a lie detector test, and I think he passed, or he's saying he passed. Keep in mind, we talk about this on the channel every now and then. There's no laws that law enforcement has to be honest with you about results of lie detectors or anything like that. Here at WKRN, we hear father of Summer Wells says wife has passed lie detector test. My wife just left the district attorney's office with the FBI and she passed her lie detector test, Donald Wells said. Then they told her to hurry down to the command center because they just got a tip. So we're freaking out right now. I've seen this mentioned in a few different articles, but whatever this tip was that they had to rush down to get, I'm not seeing any follow-up. I have no idea what's going on with that. And then we get this really bizarre additional twist in this. If all of this case isn't already hard enough to understand, there's another missing persons case in this same family. Candace's sister also went missing back in 2009, Rose Marie Bly, missing from St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin, at the age of 21. Of course, a big thank you to Megan at Charlie Project. Bly was last seen in St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin at 7:30 p.m. on August 21st, 2009. She left her home to travel 4 or 5 miles to Cushing, Wisconsin to meet a cousin at a bar. Sometime that night, Bly contacted her husband and said she'd be home by midnight. She never arrived in Cushing, however, and has never been heard from again. Bly's car was found in a parking lot normally used by semi-truck drivers to park their tractor trailers. The car was undamaged. There was no evidence of foul play, and the keys were missing. Bly's husband filed for divorce 3 weeks after her disappearance and sought a court order to prevent her from returning and taking the children. Their relationship was troubled, and police were called to the home at least once to intervene in a domestic violence incident. He had previously filed for divorce in June of 2009, but withdrew the filing after he and Bly reconciled. Bly's husband passed a polygraph, and he isn't considered a suspect in her disappearance. Bly fell off a horse a week before her disappearance. She told her mother she was having headaches after the accident, and her mother advised her to see a doctor, but there's no evidence that she ever did. Bly's mother speculated her daughter became disoriented due to her injury and wandered away. There is no evidence to support any theory, however. Bly's case remains unsolved. Just very, very strange. 2 disappearances, both directly connected to Candace, her sister, and her daughter. But is there any connection between these 2 disappearances outside of that? Over at WJHL.com, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation says there's no evidence linking Bly's disappearance with that of Summers. So it looks like we don't have any reason to think that those 2 disappearances are connected, but we've got tragedy striking very close to Candace in particular, twice. Whenever I hear about a missing child like this, it grabs at my heart. But when I hear about the potential that the child was actually taken from their home, I really have a strong emotional reaction to it. I get kind of angry about it because in a lot of those cases, it seems like there's usually someone very close to the child that's responsible for it. Do child abductions happen from homes? Yes. But it's not all that common, and that's not just me saying it, that's according to the experts. Child abductions from homes, exceptionally rare. They don't happen often according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We do see them from time to time, but they're exceptionally rare, said Bob Lowery, executive director. This is a different kind of predator that will engage in something that high risk because of the motivation for what he wants to do with that child. So knowing they're that rare, knowing we're talking about an area with already fairly small size population, the chances of this being that type of abduction, that someone came into the home and took her, seems really, really small. And even by Dawn's version of the story, it's like they think she went out that door. I don't think they necessarily feel like someone came in and removed her. We're not hearing about any signs of struggle that were found down in that lower basement. So when it comes to abductions like this, I wanted to kind of just drill in a little bit more about the stats, about which way these cases typically lean. Because quite honestly, I know a lot of you out there are going to be extremely suspicious of the family. It's not always the family, but is there a statistical reason to be suspicious of the family? Yes. Is that why investigators are processing this case in the way that they are? I mean, Dawn's been very clear. They have to do their job. Several times it is the family. Yes, here at parents.com. At the end of 2017, the Bureau's National Crime Information Center missing persons file contained more than 32,000 records of children. There are three distinct types of kidnapping. Kidnapping by a relative of the victim, or family kidnapping, is 49%. Kidnapping by an acquaintance of the victim, or acquaintance kidnapping, 27%. So just looking at the very simple stats of this, just kind of from a 30,000 foot perspective, more than 75% of these cases is going to be someone that knows that child that has abducted them. Now that does leave a significant percentage, 24%, kidnapping by a stranger to the victim, or stranger kidnapping. Family kidnapping is committed primarily by parents. Involves a larger percentage of female perpetrators, 43%, than other types of kidnapping offenses. Occurs more frequently to children under 6. Equally victimizes juveniles of both sexes, and most often originates in the home. Acquaintance kidnapping involves a comparatively high percentage of juvenile perpetrators. So this is kind of shifting out of the conditions of today's case. Has the largest percentage of female and teenage victims, is more often associated with other crimes, especially sexual and physical assault, occurs at homes and residences, and has the highest percentage of injured victims. A couple of those pieces could potentially fit in this case. Stranger kidnapping, which seems to be Dawn's number one theory on this, victimizes more females than males. Occurs primarily at outdoor locations. So there, I think the theory of her leaving the house on her own, getting lost, and then something happening, kind of supported by this possibility. Victimizes both teenagers and school-age children. Is associated with sexual assaults in the case of girl victims, and robberies in the case of boy victims, although not exclusively so. And is the type of kidnapping most likely to involve the use of a firearm. In 80% of abductions by strangers, the first contact between the child and the abductor occurs within a quarter mile of the child's home. Most potential abductors grab their victims on the street or try to lure them into their vehicles. About 74% of the victims of non-family child abduction are girls. So yes, the stats for family being involved in a situation like this, extremely high, but kidnapping in particular. And we don't have a split parent situation going on here. We don't have, Dawn's living in one place, Candace is in another. Candace wants her child Summer, so Candace goes and kidnaps Summer. So we're not having that type of situation happen here. Quite honestly, the stranger kidnapping, considering the conditions that are normal about that, and the fact that it mostly happens outside, occurs within a quarter of a mile of the child's home, that's number, if it's not number one, it's a really close number two on my mind. I'm concerned she left on her own accord, but from there, I don't know if we're talking about an accident in the woods, or I don't know if she made it to a road and we're talking a crime of opportunity that happens from there. Of course, outside of that, is there the possibility of some family involvement here? The information around that domestic disturbance call, that's pretty troubling. That's pretty troubling as well. At the same time I was recording this episode, TBI held another press conference. Do we have an update? As of 4 p.m. Thursday, the TBI said authorities are frustrated by the lack of leads, but remain dedicated. Leslie Earhart said the status of the search and investigation remains essentially the same after following up with roughly 300 leads in the search. She said the case is outside the norm compared to other missing children, saying they still do not know where Summer is, and said the circumstances behind her disappearance remain unknown. We know the public is frustrated and wants answers, but no one is more frustrated than we are, she said. I totally understand that and fully believe it. They remain hopeful Wells is still alive. We hope so, but honestly, we just don't know, she said. we would have found a child at this stage of the investigation. But honestly, we just don't know. Certainly outside the norm, and a case that I know has put me on an emotional roller coaster. I'm sure it's doing the same for you guys. I ask that we please try to level that out, try to be smart about the comments that we make, the conversation that we have down below. It's about trying to help develop good information for others to come along and engage with. It's not about trying to prove who's right or to try to make a call on what's actually going on in this case. The investigators need help, and we need to help them raise exposure and try to get this video in front of the right eyes, the people that have information and for some reason haven't called it in yet. And if you're one of those people, please find it within your heart to do the right thing. This family deserves answers. This community deserves answers. All these professionals that are rallying around from all those different states, everyone's waiting for the answers here. And if you have those answers, please do the right thing and call it in. Before I end today's video, I have several people to thank that are supporting us here at Lord and Arts. Thank you to new patrons, Patty Weemers, Steph, and Jasmine. Also a big thank you to patrons that have increased their pledges. Thank you, Wendy Trevette, Dale DeRosa, and Jules. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordandarts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee like Siobhan Householder recently did. We really appreciate your help and support as we continue trying to help in cases like today's. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I'll see you back here on Monday with a brand new episode of Case Cracked on the Lord and Arts channel.